Elias had walked these mountains for most of his adult life, yet they still felt larger than him. The peaks rose like old, quiet giants, their rocky faces worn smooth by time and weather. Snow rested in the higher shadows even during warmer months, refusing to melt completely. The air was thin and clean, carrying only the sound of wind and distant birds. It was a place where the world felt empty, but Elias knew better. Empty places always hid something. He moved slowly along a narrow path, boots pressing into loose gravel and frost-touched soil. A small scanner was strapped to his wrist, its screen glowing faintly. He checked it again, frowning. The numbers made no sense. The readings had begun changing 3 days ago, fluctuating in ways no natural formation should allow. At first, he thought the device was broken. Then he brought a second one. Both agreed. Something was buried here. Elias was not a treasure hunter or a thrill seeker. He worked as an independent surveyor, mapping geological anomalies for research groups that did not like to advertise their interests. Most of the time, his job was dull. Rocks were rocks. Mountains were mountains. But sometimes the land whispered secrets, and Elias had learned how to listen. The signal was strongest near a steep slope where the mountain face dipped inward, forming a natural hollow. Snow gathered there in strange patterns, as if the ground beneath it was warmer. Elias knelt and brushed some away with his glove. The stone underneath felt smooth, too smooth. He pressed his palm against it and froze. The rock shifted. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but the surface moved like it was breathing. Elias stepped back quickly, heart racing. He waited, listening. The wind continued its lonely song. Nothing else moved. "This isn't real," he muttered to himself. Still, he reached out again. This time the stone split open silently, peeling away like layers of old bark. A dark opening appeared, wide enough for a person to enter. Soft light spilled out, pale blue and steady, like moonlight trapped underground. Elias stood there for a long time, caught between fear and wonder. Every sensible part of his mind told him to leave, to report this and let professionals handle it. But another part of him, the part that had brought him into the mountains alone, stepped forward. He turned on his helmet light and entered. The tunnel was smooth, curved, and clearly shaped, not carved. The walls glowed faintly, responding to his presence. As he walked, the air grew warmer, more controlled, like the inside of a sealed building. The sound of the wind vanished behind him. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Elias stopped breathing. Before him stood a structure that could not exist. A massive vessel rested inside the mountain, its surface silver-dark and seamless, stretching farther than his light could fully reveal. It looked grown rather than built, shaped by design principles he could not recognize. Lines of soft light ran across its body, shifting slowly like thoughts made visible. An abandoned ship, his mind whispered, but abandoned things did not feel like this. The chamber was quiet yet alive. The floor beneath his boots felt warm and steady. Lights brightened gently as he moved, guiding him deeper without words or signs. Elias felt like a guest who had arrived late to a long-planned meeting. He approached an opening in the ship's side. It widened as he neared, forming a doorway just tall enough for him. Inside, the space was vast but not empty. Smooth platforms, curved walls, and floating shapes suggested purpose. Everything was clean. There was no dust, no decay, no sense of ruin. "This ship didn't crash," Elias said softly. "It hid." As if responding, the doorway closed behind him. Elias turned sharply, pulse rising, but the walls only glowed calmly. The air remained easy to breathe. Nothing felt threatening. He walked deeper. The interior changed subtly as he moved. Surfaces adjusted their texture, becoming easier to walk on. Light shifted to match his vision. When he stopped, everything paused with him, waiting. "This thing knows I'm here," he whispered. At the center of the ship, he found her. She stood or floated, inside a clear chamber, suspended in a field of light. She was humanoid, but not human. Taller than Elias, slender, with skin that shimmered like pearl under starlight. Her hair flowed freely around her head, moving as if underwater, glowing faintly at the edges. Her eyes were large, deep, and impossibly calm. She was awake. Their eyes met, and Elias felt the strangest sensation wash over him. Not fear, not surprise, relief. The feeling did not come from him. The field around her shifted, and symbols rippled across the air between them. Elias took a step back, heart pounding. He raised his hands slowly, palms open. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, though he had no idea if she could hear him. Her expression changed, subtle but clear. The tension in her posture eased, the light around her softened. Then his head filled with a voice not spoken, not heard, but understood. At last, Elias gasped and staggered, grabbing the edge of a nearby platform to steady himself. I didn't mean to, he said aloud, confused and shaken. The voice came again, gentle and careful. You are not a threat. Tears stung Elias' eyes, surprising him. He nodded slowly, though he wasn't sure why. I found the signal, he said. I didn't know it was you. The chamber around them brightened, as if acknowledging the truth. The ship hummed softly, a deep, steady sound that felt comforting rather than alarming. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with open curiosity. You came alone, she said. You did not call others. You did not flee. I didn't want anyone else to get hurt, Elias replied, and I wanted to understand. For the first time, her lips curved into something like a smile. Understanding is rare, she said. The field around her lowered just a fraction. Not enough to free her, but enough to show trust. Elias felt the ship respond, systems awakening, pathways opening. Something deep within the mountain stirred. He realized then that the ship had not activated because he touched it. It activated because he stayed. Outside, far above them, the mountain stood unchanged, silent and ancient. But within its heart, a meeting long delayed had finally begun. And neither of them yet understood how much the universe would change, because a human chose curiosity over fear. Elias sat on the smooth floor of the ship, his back resting against a curved wall that felt warm and solid, like it had been made to comfort rather than restrain. He had not planned to sit. His legs had simply stopped holding him. Too much had happened too quickly, and his body needed time to accept what his mind already knew. He was not alone. Across the chamber, the alien woman remained within her field of light. The glow around her pulsed slowly, matching a rhythm that Elias realized was close to his own breathing. The ship had noticed his state and adjusted itself, calming the air, softening the light. You're real, Elias said quietly, more to himself than to her. I always thought if we ever met someone like you, it would be loud, bright, scary. Her eyes never left him. Fear is a common expectation, she replied gently. But it is not the only possible beginning. Her voice still did not sound like sound. It arrived in his thoughts fully formed, carrying emotion along with meaning. It was careful, like someone stepping across thin ice, making sure each step was safe. My name is Elias, he said after a moment. I don't know if names matter to you, but it feels wrong not to say it. Names matter, she answered. Mine is Salith. The name carried an echo, as if it held history and weight far beyond the simple sound. Elias repeated it softly, and the ship responded with a faint shimmer, recording the exchange. How long have you been here? He asked. Time passed differently for me, Salith said, but by your measurement, many of your lifetimes. Elias swallowed. And the ship? It's been waiting? Yes, waiting is what it was made to do. As if in agreement, the ship sent out a low hum that traveled through the floor and walls. Symbols appeared in the air, slow and deliberate, forming shapes Elias did not recognize. As he watched, they shifted, simplifying, becoming patterns closer to human geometry. It's adjusting, he said, amazed. It is learning you, Salith replied. It learns all who enter, but it only opens fully for those who remain. Elias frowned slightly. Remain. She studied him carefully before answering. Most who found this place across the ages left quickly, she said. Some fled, some tried to take, some called others, none stayed without demanding control. And that matters? Elias asked. It matters more than strength, she replied. The field around her lowered another small amount. Elias noticed the change immediately. It felt like trust deepening, not given freely, but earned step by step. What happened to your people? He asked softly. For a long moment, she did not answer. The lights dimmed slightly, and Elias felt a quiet heaviness settle in the air. We were explorers, Salith said at last, not conquerors, not rulers. We searched for understanding, for patterns beneath existence. We believed knowledge alone could protect us. Elias listened without interrupting. We discovered something vast, she continued. Not an enemy, not a being, a condition of reality itself. You might call it the silence. The word sent a chill through him, though nothing threatening followed. The silence is what remains when civilizations stop adapting, Salith explained. When they believe they have reached an end point, it does not attack, it simply waits. What happens then? Elias asked. They fade, she said, slowly. Their ideas weaken, their questions disappear. They lose the ability to change. Elias thought of ancient empires on Earth, of cultures that vanished not from sudden disaster, but from stagnation. And your people? We feared change, she admitted. We tried to preserve what we were instead of becoming something new. The ship around them shifted, projecting faint images into the air. Elias saw shapes that might have been cities, glowing softly, then dimming. He felt a deep sadness, not sharp or painful, but heavy and enduring. This ship, Elias said, it ran away. It hid, Salith corrected. To wait for a species that would not. Humans? Elias asked, disbelief mixing with quiet pride. Yes, the word carried certainty. Elias laughed weakly. You're wrong, we're scared of everything. We argue, we fail, we break things. Salith tilted her head slightly. And yet, she said, you question even your own failures. You tell stories about them. You build from mistakes rather than erasing them. The ship projected new images. Scenes Elias recognized. Early humans painting on cave walls, explorers sailing into unknown oceans, scientists arguing over theories, children asking endless questions. You've been watching us, he whispered. We have been listening, Salith replied, your broadcasts, your art. Your noise, so much noise, there was something almost amused in her tone. You didn't come down, Elias said. You never made contact. We were not certain you were ready, she said. Readiness is not about peace or perfection, it is about movement. Elias thought about humanity's constant unrest, its refusal to stay still. So why me? The ship answered before Salith could. A soft light spread around Elias, scanning gently, not invasive, but curious. Data flowed through the air, adjusting as it encountered unfamiliar patterns. You came without authority, Salith said, without weapons, without certainty. You came to understand, not to claim. Elias looked down at his hands. They were still shaking slightly. I was just doing my job, he said. That may be your job, she replied, but it is not your nature. The field around her lowered enough now that Elias could feel the air change between them. She was still contained, but no longer distant. What happens now? He asked. Salith looked away for the first time, her gaze drifting toward the inner core of the ship. Now the ship must decide if humanity truly moves forward or only circles itself. Elias felt a quiet weight settle on his shoulders. Not fear, but responsibility. And if we fail, he asked, then the ship will sleep again, she said, and the silence will continue. Outside the mountain, the world remained unaware. But inside, human curiosity was being measured not by strength or dominance, but by the simple, dangerous act of staying and asking why. And Elias, an ordinary man in extraordinary circumstances, realized that humanity's greatest test had never been about power at all. Elias slept without dreaming. He did not remember lying down, but when he opened his eyes, he was resting on a smooth surface shaped to fit his body perfectly. The light around him was soft, neither bright nor dark, and the air felt clean and warm. For a brief moment, he forgot where he was. Then he remembered everything at once. He sat up quickly, heart racing, and looked around. The chamber had changed. The walls curved differently now, wider and more open, and gentle patterns of light moved across them like slow waves. The ship felt awake in a deeper way, more aware. You are safe, Salith's voice said calmly inside his mind. He turned and saw her standing outside the containment field. The barrier still existed, but it was faint now, barely visible unless the light caught it at the right angle. She was closer than before, no longer distant or untouchable. How long was I out? Elias asked. A short time, she replied. Your mind needed rest. You were processing more than you realized. Elias rubbed his face and stood slowly. His body felt strangely refreshed, as if he had slept for days instead of hours. The ship did this? He asked. Yes, Salith said. It adapts to biological needs once trust reaches a certain level. That's unsettling, Elias admitted, but also kind of impressive. There was a faint warmth in her presence, something close to amusement. The ship values efficiency balanced with care, she said. Your species does as well, though you rarely admit it. Elias looked around again. You said the ship has to decide if humanity moves forward or just goes in circles. How does it decide that? Salith gestured, and the space between them filled with light. Images formed in the air, clearer and sharper than before. Elias felt like he was standing inside a living memory. We will show you, she said. The images shifted to scenes from other worlds. Elias saw cities unlike anything on Earth, built in perfect symmetry. Towers rose smoothly into colored skies. Everything looked ordered, controlled, flawless. These were advanced civilizations? Elias asked. Yes, Salith replied, strong, intelligent, united. They solved hunger, disease, conflict. What went wrong? He asked. The images continued. The cities stopped changing. No new structures appeared, no experiments, no art that broke patterns, everything stayed the same. They stopped asking questions, Elias said quietly. Salith nodded. They reached answers they liked and decided those answers were final. The scenes faded, replaced by emptiness. Worlds still existed, but no signals came from them. No voices, no stories. They didn't die, Elias said slowly. They just stopped. Exactly. Elias felt an uncomfortable recognition. We almost do that too, sometimes. Sometimes, Salith agreed, but not for long. The ship shifted again, now showing human history. Not the polished version from textbooks, but raw and messy moments. Failed experiments, arguments between scientists, broken machines rebuilt into something better. Art that made no sense at first, then changed how people thought. Elias saw protests, debates, mistakes repeated, lessons learned slowly. You call this chaos, Salith said. We call it motion. Elias watched a scene of early space probes leaving Earth, small and fragile against the dark. We don't give up easily, he said. No, she replied. You fail loudly, publicly, and often. Then you write about it, argue about it, and try again. The ship seemed to hum in approval. But that doesn't mean we're ready for whatever comes next, Elias said. We still fight, we still mess things up. Salith looked at him closely. Readiness is not the absence of flaws. It is the refusal to stop improving despite them. She moved closer to the field, placing her hand near it. The barrier flickered but held. My people believed perfection was safety, she continued. Your people believe improvement is survival. Elias crossed his arms, thinking, so the ship is what? A judge. A mirror, Salith corrected. It reflects what a species truly values when no one is watching. The ship projected another image. This time it was Earth seen from space. Small, blue, fragile. You're testing us without us knowing, Elias said. We have always tested those who listen, Salith replied. You just became aware of it. Elias felt a strange mix of pride and fear. And what about you? Why are you here alone? Salith's gaze softened. I was chosen to observe and decide whether contact was possible. I stayed too long, Elias asked. I began to admire you, she said simply, and admiration clouds judgment. Elias blinked. That sounds human. She tilted her head slightly. Perhaps that is why the ship still listens to me. The ship's lights dimmed briefly, then returned, as if acknowledging the truth. What happens if the ship decides we're ready? Elias asked. Then knowledge will flow, Salith said, not weapons, not control, context, warnings, paths others failed to see. And if we're not, he asked, then nothing changes, she replied, which for you may be worse. Elias laughed quietly. Yeah, we don't handle stillness very well. The images faded, leaving them alone again in the chamber. I don't know why it picked me, Elias said after a moment. I'm not important. Salith met his eyes. Importance is not what the ship measures, it measures response. To what? Elias asked. To the unknown, she said. Silence filled the space, not heavy but thoughtful. Elias realized the ship was waiting again, not for movement, for choice. So what do you want me to do? Elias asked. Salith did not answer immediately. Instead, the ship projected one final image. A signal spreading outward from Earth, faint but persistent, made of patterns Elias recognized, music, mathematics, stories. This is what you already do, she said. You speak into the dark not knowing who listens. Elias understood then. The test was never about him alone. It was about whether humanity would keep speaking, even after learning the universe might answer back. He took a slow breath. Then tell the ship the truth. Salith raised an eyebrow. We're not ready, Elias said. And we never will be, but we won't stop trying. The ship's hum deepened, thoughtful and alive. For the first time since entering the mountain, Elias felt something vast turn its attention fully toward humanity, not with judgment, but with curiosity. And curiosity, Elias knew, was the one thing humans would never run out of. The ship was silent for a long time. Not the empty kind of silence Elias had known in the mountains, where wind filled the gaps. This silence felt focused, deliberate, as if something vast was thinking very carefully. The lights dimmed slightly, then stabilized, holding a calm, steady glow. Elias stood without moving. He did not feel fear. He felt small, but not weak. Somewhere deep inside him, he understood that this moment mattered more than anything he had done before, not because he was special, but because he was human. Salith watched the light patterns move across the walls. She had seen this state before, long ago. It was not judgment. It was alignment. The ship is listening, she said quietly. Elias nodded. It always was. The air shifted gently, and the space around them opened wider. The chamber expanded, walls pulling back smoothly, revealing structures Elias had not seen before. Transparent surfaces rose from the floor, forming shapes that looked like windows into distant places. Stars appeared, not images or recordings, but real-time views. Elias recognized none of the constellations. These were not skies seen from Earth. They were skies seen from everywhere else. "The ship is showing us the universe," Elias said, his voice barely above a whisper. Salith nodded. "It is showing you the scope of the conversation you are already part of." As if in response, one of the star-filled windows changed. Patterns formed across it, waves of light, repeating sequences, symbols that reminded Elias of music notes and mathematical curves blended together. "What is that?" he asked. "A message," Salith replied. "One the ship prepared long ago but never sent." "Why not?" Because no one had yet answered the question it was meant to ask. Elias felt his chest tighten. "And that question is," Salith looked at him fully now, "will you continue even when continuation costs you comfort?" Elias did not answer immediately. His mind filled with images of Earth, cities struggling to balance growth and care, scientists arguing late into the night, families telling stories to children even when the future felt uncertain, humans failing then trying again. "Yes," he said finally, "we always do." The ship responded. The hum deepened, not louder but richer, like many voices finding harmony. The containment field around Salith dissolved completely, fading into nothing. For the first time since Elias had met her, there was no barrier between them. Salith stepped forward. The moment her foot touched the floor, the ship changed again. Light flowed outward from the contact point, spreading through the chamber and into the mountain itself. Elias felt the vibration travel up through his legs, gentle but powerful. "You're free," Elias said softly. Salith looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers as if rediscovering weight and texture. "Yes," she said, "because humanity chose uncertainty instead of safety." Elias laughed quietly. "That sounds about right." The windows shifted again. More signals appeared, faint at first, then clearer. Elias realized what he was seeing. "They're listening," he said. "Other civilizations." "Yes," Salith confirmed. "The ship is no longer hiding." Elias felt a sudden surge of concern. "Is that safe for us?" Salith considered the question carefully. "Safety is not the same as stagnation," she said. "The ship will not give them your location, it will give them something else." The patterns across the windows resolved into familiar things. Human voices speaking many languages, music. Laughter, scientific data mixed with poetry, stories of loss and hope placed side by side without shame. "It's sending us," Elias said, stunned. "It is sending your way of thinking," Salith replied. "Not your weapons, not your power, your persistence." The ship's core brightened, and Elias felt a pressure in his chest, not painful but heavy with meaning. He understood now why Salith had called humanity dangerous. Not because humans destroyed, because humans endured. Far beyond the mountain, deep in space, dormant systems stirred. Ancient receivers that had gone silent long ago activated, not with alarms or defenses, but with curiosity. Civilizations that had hidden from change felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Salith turned to Elias. "There will be questions," she said. "Fear, debate, some will reject what you offer." Elias shrugged slightly. "That's normal for us." She studied him, then smiled, truly this time. "That may be your greatest strength." The ship began to power down sections of itself, closing windows gently, sealing pathways. It was not shutting down completely, Elias realized. It was settling. "What happens to it now?" he asked. "It will remain here," Salith said, "as it always has, a reference point." "A reminder? A reminder of what?" Elias asked. "That growth is not quiet," she said, "and survival is not simple." The mountain above them groaned softly as the ship adjusted its position deeper into the rock, securing itself for the future. The entrance Elias had used began to close, reshaping stone as if nothing had ever disturbed it. Elias felt a pang of sadness. "No one will ever know this place exists." Salith looked at him thoughtfully. "They will know the effect," she said. "That is enough." The ship created one final structure near Elias, a small, simple device that fit easily in his hand. It glowed softly. "A record?" he asked. "A bridge," Salith replied, "when humanity is ready to ask new questions." Elias closed his fingers around it, feeling warmth spread through his palm. "What about you?" he asked. "Will you come with me?" Salith turned her gaze toward the sealed walls of the chamber, then back to him. I will walk your world for a time, she said. I wish to understand you the way you understand yourselves, by living among your contradictions. Elias smiled. Good luck, we're confusing even to each other. I know, she said gently. That is why you survive. The ship's hum faded to a quiet presence, no longer active but not asleep either. It had done what it was built to do. When Elias and Salith stepped out into the mountain air hours later, the sky was painted with early morning light. Snow reflected soft pink and gold hues. The world looked exactly the same, and yet everything was different. Elias took a deep breath of cold air. So, he said, how do we explain you? Salith looked out over the mountains. You don't, she said. Not yet. You let humanity arrive at the truth the way it always does. Slowly, Elias said. Messily, she added. He laughed. Yeah, that sounds right. Far above them, unnoticed by any human eye, faint signals traveled outward through space. Not announcements, not warnings, stories. And across the galaxy, civilizations that had forgotten how to change listened to the sound of a species that never stopped trying. Not because humans were perfect, but because they refused to be finished.